All right. So, our second speaker is Andrew Stenehjem. So, Andrew is the manager of user services for the Beaverton School District. He previously worked for the school district in technical support at both the school district and at the school and district level, including managing the district's 16,000 Apple computers and devices, which has since grown to 25,000. Since beginning as the manager of user services in December 2014, Andrew has helped the district to reshape its technology support model. He has presented to various regional and national groups on the district's management and support philosophies, support initiatives, and the logistics of managing Apple products. He has served as a member of JAMF's Customers Advisory Board. And so when I type in a help desk ticket, it goes, he is the manager of that. So I know him very well. Go ahead.
Are you not very good at speeches? You just have to read that up.
I just have to.
I wouldn't expect Mr. Galbraith to memorize my bio, but that'd be a lot of work.
No, but our teachers make us read speeches. Where you start?
So hello everybody, like Mr. Galbraith said, my name is Andrew Stenehjem. I work for the IT department for the school district. I'm going to focus a little bit less on what I talk about. It's going to be a little bit less about my job and technical skills specifically, and a little bit more big picture and kind of broad and what my experiences have been. Sure. Yeah.
What does IT stand for? Information technology.
Information technology. Ooh, now I sound really cool. Now you have to pay attention. All right. So working for the school district, I don't know if you've seen this or not, but this is the school district goal that we have. So that's we empower all students to achieve post-high school success. So a question that kind of comes up a lot is, what is post-high school success? What does that mean? And how do you define success after high school? So it can mean many different things to many different people. To some people it might mean a certain financial situation, that you're going to get out there and you're going to make a certain amount of money. To some people it might be in a specific career that you want to go into, or a certain position you want to get to. It might be a certain set of skills that you hope to acquire. And it really kind of focuses on this question that, do you get asked this at your age? Have you been asked this type of a thing? Okay, you will continue to get asked this as you go to your post-high school, what you do at that point as well, which is, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And the focus is on what you're going to do. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but I also want to give you a warning that don't lose track of, when you're thinking about the what, don't lose track of who you want to be when you grow up, because it's sort of easy to forget about that. And that kind of begs the question, who are you as a person? So something that I would ask you to think about. And I'll tell you a little story about these two ladies a little bit later that kind of relates to why I think it's important to think about that. But first we'll talk about the sort of what do you want to be when you grow up piece of it, and I'll share with you a little bit about my experiences. So you may or may not know, but our school system, our education system, is more or less based upon sort of a factory model, an industrial model from over 100 years ago. And the whole goal with it was to create factory workers, to create people who could finish school and go start working in factories. So they had the skills necessary to just begin in that career. So as you can imagine, that's a little bit outdated because there's so many changes in technology now. That model is starting to evolve and starting to shift. And you can see news stories all the time happening with this type of a headline, right? Where there's jobs that are being cut due to technology. So it's automation, it's robotics, things like that. So people's jobs are being cut all over the place. If they're not being cut, they're being changed. The Department of Labor a few years ago said that 65% of you will end up working in jobs that don't currently exist. So if we're still following this sort of traditional educational model of giving you specific skills to do a specific job, how can we do that if we don't even know what the majority of your jobs are going to be once you finish school? So looking at our department, our IT department in the school district, these are some positions that we have in our department that didn't actually exist 10 years ago within our department. And when I think about the people that fill most of those roles, most of those people didn't go to school specifically to do these jobs. These were things that they had to learn once they started in those careers. So for me personally, my last job, that position has only existed for 11 years. My current job's only existed for 3 years. And jobs that we're hiring, including yesterday, have only existed, they're basically brand new. So these are just new jobs that we're kind of creating on the fly. So all of this is to say is that for you guys, as for us, change is inevitable. So the question is kind of how are you going to deal with that change? So you may prepare for one thing, you may prepare for two things, but you may end up doing things that are completely different than what you prepared for. So sometimes people will ask kind of what are your skills, and I would encourage you to think about what are your adaptable skills. So not a specific skill that only applies to one specific job, but what are the skills that you have that would apply to many different jobs? Has anyone heard of Blockbuster?
I used to go to Blockbuster.
You used to go there? Wow, I can't believe it still existed that recently. So Blockbuster, for the two of you that don't know, was a video rental store. So when I was in high school, we used to go to these places on a weekend night, and you'd walk around aimlessly for 4 hours and then make yourself pick a video. So this was a certain business model that they had, right? And it was successful at the time, and there was Blockbuster stores everywhere. They didn't evolve as changes in technology happened. So streaming became a thing. Netflix became a thing originally, where you could just get the discs mailed to you. Blockbuster didn't really evolve, and they sort of stayed stagnant with their current business model. Do you know how many Blockbusters are left now?
One.
Do you know where it is? It's in Bend, Oregon. Yep, there's only one left. So you can contrast that with a company like Nokia. Anybody know how Nokia started? So Nokia started in the 1800s as a paper mill company. But they've had good adaptable skills, and they've had a good business model, and they've just continued to evolve and adapt to whatever the needs of the time were. You heard the last speaker saying that with their business, they already know that there's going to be changes in technology that are going to impact their business, so they want to have a good business model that can adapt when those changes happen. So a little bit quickly about sort of my journey. These are the jobs that I have had since the time that I was your age. So I'll give you a second to look at those. I was working for the evil Amazon before it was the evil Amazon. So you can see there's sort of a wide variety of things there, right? It's not like there's a clear-cut career path. Those positions in orange down there are the positions within the IT field that I've had recently. So I thought when I was your age, because we were sort of trained to think that we would all start at point A, which is where you guys are right now in school, and then there would be this sort of solid line, which would be the training that you would get to do your job, and then you would get to point B, which is your job, and you'd walk in having all the skills you needed to be successful in it. So this was my expectation when I was your age. And instead it kind of looked more like that, right? Where you had to go do one job that seemingly had nothing to do with the next job, that seemingly had nothing to do with the next job. So it's resulted in a lot of that kind of a thing, right? Where I've had to start in a job, and as somebody who wants to be prepared when I start something, I've had to have this feeling, which is show up for a job not really knowing what I'm going to need to know to do that job. So it kind of comes back to, again, what are the adaptable skills that can help make you successful in a variety of different things? So these are three things that to me have helped make me successful, and I think I've seen this a lot with people who have been able to go from job to job and be successful. So the ability to learn and adapt, the ability to creatively solve problems, and the ability to communicate. So when we're hiring, and I'm a part of a lot of hiring committees, one thing that I can tell you is that traditionally it used to be you would look for the person who had the most experience and the most high level of skills for the position you were hiring. That's changed now, and so now it's not necessarily that we look for the person who has the most experience and the most skills in this field, because that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be great, because their job's probably going to change, and it might change a year after they start their job. Yeah.
So more of quantity, not quality.
I wouldn't even say quantity. It's just a different type of skill, and I think it's more of these adaptable skills that we're talking about. So change again is inevitable for all of us. So what are your adaptable skills? So when you think about learning and adapting, I can tell you about some of those positions in our department, including the position I previously had, managing all of the Apple devices, right? So when we hired that person, was hired kind of with the old understanding, and we hired somebody who had a lot of knowledge in managing Apple devices. Well, that position has changed and evolved because we've had to add so many other support positions that now we're asking that person to put on trainings, to do documentation, to do professional development, to work as part of teams with things. So they're doing less of the technical work and more of this interpersonal work. And that's been pretty common. You can see examples of that happening in many different jobs. So the ability to learn and adapt to the new things that you'll need to do successfully to do your job. In any job that I've worked in, and I would imagine probably any job that exists, identifying and solving problems is a huge critical skill to have. So that could be a variety of things. Again, that Apple architect could at one point be trying to figure out a technical problem, right? They could be trying to identify a problem with their code that they need to find a solution for. It could also be that they're having trouble communicating something to a person isn't understanding their training and they're doing something incorrectly, and they need to figure out how that person's communication style will work with theirs so that they can get that person to understand what they need to know. And along those lines, the ability to communicate effectively. So that's not just verbally speaking with someone or communicating via electronic mechanisms. This is the ability to listen to people, to understand what people's needs are, to have empathy and things like that. So those are all kind of things wrapped into that what do you want to be when you grow up category. And like I said, I think the ability to be flexible is really important. But again, I would urge you to also think about who you want to be when you grow up. So I think one thing that's really easy to do is to sort of lose track of that who are you piece, and especially at your age, I think it's really easy to sort of put off thinking about that, right? Because there's so many things that you guys are asked to do. You need to make all these decisions about what you're going to do today, tomorrow, next week, next year. It's really easy to think, well, this isn't something I need to worry too much about right now. I will tell you that that continues, and that can continue your whole life. You can continue to sort of put off this idea of thinking about who am I, what's important to me, what do I want to be remembered for. So if you're lucky enough to live a nice long life, at the end of your life, are you going to feel satisfied and gratified and feel like you did the things that you wanted to do in your life? Or are you going to instead be looking back with regret and resentment and thinking about the things that you didn't do and the questions that you didn't answer? So I want to share with you a couple things that when they've asked people at the end of their life what they most regretted. These are some of the things that they said are most commonly listed among people about their biggest regrets. So one of them is that they wish that they'd had the courage to live a life true to themselves and not the life that others expected of them. Many regret the things that they never did, and they grieve over their dreams that have gone unfulfilled. Many of them felt like they hadn't really lived. And many regret postponing their happiness to one day because that day never came. This is really uplifting, right? Many wish that they had not worked so hard, that they were making money at the expense of relationships. They wish that they'd taken the time to love more and to express their feelings rather than suppressing them. And they regret not staying in touch with friends and not giving the friendships the time and effort that they deserved. And this kind of goes back to that question of who are you? Many confess that they never really knew themselves or weren't clear on what they really wanted out of life. So that brings me to the story of these two ladies. So these are my grandmas. The one on the right just passed away a year ago. The one on the left is 94 years old and she's living in a home right now. The one on the right who passed away lived a very fulfilling and satisfying life. And I think part of the reason for that was she had a good understanding of who she was, what her values were, what was important to her, and the things that were important to her and the things she wanted to do. She took the opportunity to do those things. So my other grandma, the grandma on the left, I think about, this motivates me all the time. She's had a good life, she's been very lucky in many ways, but one thing that she always talked about was she had wanted to go to Europe her entire life. And she's lucky enough in a financial situation and things like that that she could have gone to Europe, but she didn't because she put it off. She sort of thought, well, I don't think I could afford it, or maybe someday I'll do that. And she never did it. And I think about that all the time because I don't want to be in the same spot as her where now she's thinking, oh, I could have gone, I should have gone. So I don't want to do that. So I'm trying to identify those things now, and I'm 38 years old, that are important to me. What are my values? What are the things that if I didn't get a chance to do, I would be disappointed in, and try to start acting on those today. You guys have an even better opportunity because you have a head start on me, and you can start identifying those things now. So again, I would tell you it's important to take some time, try to set aside some time, and maybe you have to go out in the woods, maybe you have to go into your room and shut your phone off, or whatever, but spend some time forcing yourself to think about, who am I? What are my values? What's important to me? What do I want to do in life? What brings me pleasure and joy? And once you identify your values, then you can make sure that your actions are aligned to your values. There's been studies that show that this is what brings people satisfaction. There's sort of a myth that some people have about happiness and the idea that I want to be happy. And there's sort of this misunderstanding and people thinking, well, that means that I'm going to be happy all the time. That's not going to happen. Everybody's going to go through hardship. Everybody's going to go through challenges. People find that if you identify what your values are, and if you're regularly acting in accordance with those values, that will bring you satisfaction. And then hopefully when you're sitting at the end of your life, you're going to be sitting thinking about the things that you're proud of, the things that you're glad that you did, the things that you accomplished that are aligned with your values. So again, just take some time to think about who you want to be when you grow up, which means thinking about now, who are you? Thanks. Any thoughts or questions? Blockbuster? Anyone want to talk about Blockbuster? Okay.
What's one of the things that's on your list right now that you want to make sure that you don't regret not doing 50 years?
So, good question. So in college, I was actually a music major. And at the time that I graduated college, my intention was to write and record music and put together a set of songs that were mine and record them. So I've done that in bits and pieces, but I've never fully done it. So right now, I'm doing everything in my power to make that happen. So, and that's a bigger thing. There's small things too. I'll tell you that one of them was I had a teacher in college that meant a lot to me and meant a lot to a lot of people. And one of the things on my list was just telling him that and telling him what a difference he made. And so I did that a year ago, and that was something that, like, for me was a bucket list item. So, yeah.
At what age did you know like what you wanted to do like for work in the rest
I still don't. That's the truth. I think I always envied, there are some people who I think get a good grasp of that. There's some people who know from an early age what they want to do, and then they do it, and that's awesome, and I was envious of those people. I haven't been one of those people. So, yeah.
What music specifically do you do?
That's a really good question and a really hard one for me to answer. I play the guitar, bass, drums, keyboards, and sing a little bit, so it's rockish. That really helps a lot, doesn't it?
Then sing a little bit.
Well, sing a little bit? No, you don't want to hear that right now. Do you want to sing a little bit?
I don't.
Okay. Anybody want to sing a little bit? No. Other questions?
So since you're in a position to hire, what specifically are you looking for then? Let's say that, I don't know, let's say like you have like an internship position for high schoolers to work there. What would you actually be looking for?
That's a really good question. So me personally, we were just interviewing yesterday, and this is what I tend to do is I'm in the back of the room and I watch body language a lot, and I watch people's communication. And so I'm watching, how is their communication going to be received by people? Are they talking in a way that is going to make them approachable, patient, and reassuring to people? Because if you're working in technology, that's pretty important. It's important in any service industry. So I look a lot at communication style and their ability to, there's obvious things like being a self-started, motivated person, having follow through, all those kinds of things. But communication style and the ability to work well with others is huge. All right. Thank you.